Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe. Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Sotara Satashi Shrimade Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Gaur Premanandi. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Patale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 28. Paranjana becomes a woman in the next life. Text number 16. Okay. I'm going to do the word for words like Maharaj suggested, like Srila Prabhupada instructed. But I'm not going to do it like in the verse. We'll do it like word for words, because I think Srila Prabhupada's intention was to learn the language. So sometimes they're shortened or put together in the verse, but we'll go word for word, send them in Sanskrit. Tuhitri Putra Potran Cha Jami Jamatri Parshadan Svatva avashishtam yat kinchit griha kosha parichadam Duhitri putra potramscha Jami jam matri parshadan Svatvavashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichadam Duhitri putra potramscha Jami jamatri parshadan Svatva vashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichadam Dravida Dihitri putra potramscha Jami jamatri parshadan Sattva vashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichidam Dihitri putra pautramscha Jami jamatri parshadan Sattva vashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichidam Duhitri putra potramscha Jami jamatri parshadan Sattva vashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichidam Duhitri putra potramscha Jami jamatri parshadan Svatva vashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichidam Duhitri putra potramscha Jami jamatri parshadan Svatva vashishtitam yatkinchid Griyakosha parichidam Duhitri daughters, putra, sons, potran, grandsons, cha, and jami, daughters-in-law, jamatri, sons-in-law, pashardan, parshadan, associates, svatva, property, avashishtam, remaining, yet kinchit, whatever, griha, home, kosha, accumulation of wealth, parichadam, household paraphernalia. Translation. King Puranjana then began to think of his daughters, sons, grandsons, daughters-in-law, sons-in-laws, servants and other associates, as well as his house, his household paraphernalia, and his little accumulation of wealth. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is not infrequent for a person overly attached to the material body to request a physician to prolong his life at least for some time. If the so-called scientific physician is able to prolong one's life for a few minutes through the use of oxygen or other medicines, he thinks that he's very successful in his attempts, although ultimately the patient will die. This is called the struggle for existence. At the time of death, both patient and physician still think of prolonging life, although all the constituents of the body are practically dead and gone. Could pray together, please. Omagyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm very grateful to be able to have read this verse, slept on it, contemplated about it, because I really don't want this to be the story of my life. Pranjana, although he's the everyman, he's a loser. We called him a miser in the last class because as a Kripana, he didn't utilize the wealth that he had, the precious human form of life. He didn't use it to cultivate and to reawaken his eternal relationship with Krishna. He didn't endeavor to get association with the servants of Krishna. He just thought his life was all in all. And thus, we have this term, pavarga. It's about the Sanskrit alphabet. It's 5 syllables at the end of the alphabet. Papa, baba, ma. And it's interesting, this pavarga, it's the opposite of apavarga, which is what Paranjan is completely missing out on. Engaging in activities that will free him from the miseries of his life and what he's undergoing right now and the future that it will force upon him. Misery from post to pillar, I like that English saying. From birth to death and then birth again, just misery. Srila Prabhupada said we should become convinced that there is no happiness in this material world. The only way we can become convinced of that is when the Vaishnavas share with us the glories of the service of Krishna and of the home of Krishna where we belong. The associate, we had the associates of Krishna, we had the word Parshadan in the verse. The associates of Paranjan. But we want the association of Krishna's family and friends. And it's only by the grace of Guru and Vaishnavas that we have some idea of this. In our turning our compass, the North Star, it's this way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So what does this pavarga stand for? What 5 words? Pa. It means to work very hard. Now some of you are young and maybe you haven't worked hard. I've done stone work, building stone walls, big things. I've laid carpet. Try putting one of those big fat rolls of carpet on you. I've worked like an ass. I know what it means to work hard in this body. Pa. As a result, what happens when you work so hard? Foaming of the mouth. That dry cotton mouth. The racehorses, you see them, if they've run, foaming at the mouth. This is a result of working so hard. Ba stands for birth. futile, frustration, uselessness. What do you get for it all? He had his wife, he had his family. First thing it makes mention of that he's thinking of is his daughters. I haven't had a daughter in this life, per se, a stepdaughter, but it wasn't the same. I know it wasn't the same because that strong attachment wasn't there. But the first thing that this father thought of was his daughter. What will happen to my daughter? She's suffering. How will she be looked after? Anyway, the analogy is, referring to his body and all its constituents. But this is the nature of the conditioned soul. That with all your attachment, with all your desires, even when they're fulfilled, we discussed this morning, just touched on it in the announcements. But ask anyone on their deathbed were their desires fulfilled. Inevitably, they will honestly reveal, no, I am not happy, this life did not make me happy, and I don't know what I have to show for it. Because they don't know what's coming next. And because of that, full of fear. It's got to be, for a non-devotee, it's got to be as scary, and I'm going to use French just to accentuate it, it's got to be scary as hell. Can you imagine? Life as you know it, your identity as you know it, it's about to be finished, unplugged. As far as you know, erased, never to exist again. Terrifying. All because of that the last word, death. And then everything before it, Maharaj has hit upon it, and I really like this point. I think we can't hear it enough. Eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing. It is the most prominent of the 4 activities that everyone, from an insect to Lord Brahma, doesn't matter what kind of material body you have, there will be fear and anxiety. Because it's not us. It's foreign. It's illusory. It's an imposition upon us. Something just isn't right. And everybody gets that. They know there's something missing. But like I said, without the Vaishnavas there to deliver us through their merciful instructions, there but by the grace of God would be us. Bhakti Vinod Thakur has a wonderful song entitled Forgetting You, praying to Krishna. This is from his Sharanagati songs. O Lord, having forgotten you and come to this material world, I've experienced a host of sins and sorrows. Now I approach your lotus feet and submit my tale of woe. Why I was bound up tightly in the unbearable confines of my mother's womb, O Lord, you once revealed yourself before me. After appearing briefly, you abandoned this poor servant of yours. At that moment I thought, after my birth, this time I will surely worship you with undivided attention. But alas, after taking birth, I fell into the entangling network of worldly illusions. Thus I possessed not even a drop of true knowledge. As a dear son fondled in the laps of attentive relatives, I passed my time smiling and laughing. The affection of my father and mother helped me forget you still more. And I began to think that the material world was a very nice place. Day by day, I gradually grew into a young boy and began playing with other boys. Soon my powers of understanding emerged, so I diligently studied my school lessons every day. Proud of my accomplished education, I later traveled from place to place and earned much wealth. Thereby maintaining my family with undivided attention, I forgot you, O Lord Hari. Now in old age, this Bhakti Vinod very sadly weeps as death approaches. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead pass my days in vain. What will be my fate now? So after Srila Prabhupada explains about the, Anandamaya, Jnanamaya, going on down, Pranamaya, Anamaya. I left out a Maya. I forget which one it was. So anyway, he explains how the consciousness expands upon birth. At first you're aware of your own self-consciousness. I exist. Wah, I'm not happy. Wah, and then you're hungry. Anamaya. But then when you grow a little bit, your consciousness kind of expands a little, and you start identifying with your brothers and your sisters, certainly your mother. First one, mother. And these are all in the mundane realm. And when you go to school, certainly for us, in Vedic culture in times gone by, if they went to Gurukula, they didn't have the danger that we have in our modern co-ed education. Call it education, if you will. But this is where Rishabhadev's teachings come in. Because soon as puberty hits, and that hits during school time, young teenager, all the crap they're putting in the food and people are eating and what have you, it's coming sooner and sooner. But, the famous verse, Pumsa striya maitani bhavametam. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and my. And that's today's verse. He's put his whole focus in his life on all these things, and all began because he saw her in the forest, and man, was she beautiful. He wanted her. He wanted to claim her as his own. This is the illusion of my, based upon I. I'm the body and the mind, and whatever the mind pumps into my awareness, thinking, feeling, willing, all the desires I've cultivated over past millenniums, they all surface, and we, like obedient servants, jump to follow these dictates. So he wanted her. When they got together, in the purport to this verse of the 5th canto, Srila Prabhupada said, so when they get married, the relationship becomes more involved. Now in this degraded age, they don't wait for marriage. Show me a boy or girl who remains chaste and a virgin until marriage. Man, is that rare. Because animal life is the norm. If it feels good, do it. I mean, they're pushing it. That's part of the educational system. They're pushing sexual exploration and questioning sexual identity, etc. It's animal life. Not even polished. Animal life. So he's so attached to all these things. And it all started with the association and coupling with his wife. And then it just expands and expands as far as you can expand it. The conditioned soul tries his best to grab as much as he can to create a dynasty, if you will. We all have heard the pastime when the life member in Bombay was with Srila Prabhupada, and he introduced his wife, his children, their husbands and wives, and their children, meaning his grandchildren. I mean, my brother has great-grandchildren. Just blows my mind, it's a mini dynasty. And when they were all offering respects to Swamiji and going on, Prabhupada turned and said he's displaying very proudly his sex life to us. It's that lust that gets us. It's the super glue that keeps us in this material world. And it's all based upon ignorance, that I'm the body, I'm the mind. And that's what causes the intense desire and fear. You get both sides. You can't have the fun without the pain. Hankering, desiring, lamenting, and Suffering. It just goes on and on and on. Up and down. So anyway, at this stage of life, he needs help. Oh my gosh, I'm falling apart here. Very soon I could be dying. Can you help me, doctor? I'm going to quote Srila Prabhupada's words. They resonate with me, but these are Srila Prabhupada's words. 16. He says, if the so-called scientific physician, Srila Prabhupada is not giving a lot of respect to this fallible soldier. That's the teachings of, is it Sutta Goswami in the second canto? That's a question. How about it, Dravida Prabhu? Sutta Goswami talks about fallible soldiers in the second canto?
Fallible soldiers in the second canto beginning?
Yeah. Is that Sutta speaking those verses? Shukadev. Thank you for helping me. Shukadev Goswami, he calls all that we depend on for our protection, for our security, for our health, as fallible soldiers. Prahlad Maharaj says the same thing in the seventh canto. Despite having the best doctor, you can have the most specialized expert who has done more of these operations than any other doctor on the planet. This is the man who invented this procedure. You can have the best equipment. Michael Jackson, for an example, a pop icon, an idol for many millions of people on the planet. He had his own doctors, he had his own medical equipment around the world in different homes of his because he wanted it right there when I need it. But what happened? Did they prolong his life? No, actually they were the instrument of killing him. Giving him drugs that the reaction of the combination of them happens all the time. Passes away in his sleep. Happens all the time. The reason why this resonates with me is because doctors, it's the same thing as the PhDs we heard yesterday. We were talking about scientists, but today it's so-called scientific doctors. They go to school the same amount of time, 10 years, right? At least 10 years to get these doctor licenses. In all those 10 years, they spend a few hours on nutrition. It's like Socrates, I believe, said it. Physician, heal thyself. They are programmed, they are trained to push pharmaceuticals. And what are pharmaceuticals? They are the synthesization. Close? Synthesization of natural herbs that Krishna has given us, that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, I am the healing herb. Everything that we need for health, for prosperity, Krishna gives it to us in this world. We're just meant to use it in His service. He happily provides. But you can't own it, and you can't make the money you make if you're selling the herbs. If you make it, you can patent it, and then you can sell it, and anybody else who wants to sell it, you make big bucks. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and basically medical school trains you, indoctrinates you to think that this is how you go. Not saying that they're useless, but they are so uninformed about preventive health. They're all about dealing with symptoms. And that's a fact. There's no holistic, organic going to what's the root? What's really going on? What's this, manifestation really telling me? Healers know. People of the old styles, Ayurvedic, ancient Chinese medicine, etc., etc. That's what they try to get to the root, and you can solve it if it be the Lord's desire, if it be so destined. But anyway, a real doctor is Murari Gupta. One who can heal or do his best to heal. Diagnosis is the first thing. Diagnose and then prescribe. But also, this body, it's like, I'm wearing my nice dhoti today. Hey, But in time, this is going to be just as stained and tattered as many of my other dhotis. And at a certain point, I'm going to have to quit wearing it. It's just too embarrassing. It's run its course. So Murari Gupta, he could give transcendental knowledge that allowed his patients to understand they're not the dhoti. They're not the body. They're not the disease. The demands of the body, eating, sleeping, this mating, thinking thoughts. This is not us. This has nothing to do with us. We're completely distinct from the body and mind. And only the Vaishnavas can tell us that. Because they've realized it. They understand I'm Krishna's eternal servant. And they're trying to share that with as many people as possible. Unfortunately, people are deeply asleep in ignorance. And all their association and all their information is leading them in the wrong direction. To ma, death, and then ba, rebirth. Again and again. By the devotees' association, the next verse in Rishabde's teaching comes into play. Text 9 of the 5th chapter, 5th canto. When the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life, due to the results of past action, is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus one goes to the transcendental world. And in the purport, short as it is, Prabhupada said, when by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment. The knot of the heart is slackened. Thus one can get freed from conditional life and become eligible to return home back to Godhead. This is what the human form of life is for. This is the family business, sharing this transcendental knowledge, turning the conditioned souls on the path of Apavarga. A name for Krishna is Apavarga Virya. He shows one the path to liberation. He takes one down the path. When Krishna says, Sarvadharma Prityaja, just surrender to me, I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions, don't worry. This is his inviting us on the path of Apavarga. Krishna praying. Back home, back to Krishna. So simple, but so rare. So unappreciated in this world of fools and animals. So, what to do? We fill our ears with Krishna's glories. Was it Ajopi san aviyatma bhutanam iswaropi san prakratim swamadishtaya sambhavami atmamaya. Krishna, he's not born. He's imperishable. He's eternal. He's the Lord of all living entities. And when he does appear, it looks like he takes birth. He has his mother Devaki and his mother Yasoda. He has mother Yasoda eternally, but it appears as if he takes birth. But this is all under his Atmamaya, his transcendental energy. He is not of this world. In this world, even when your wife, husband, father, child, siblings, parents, whatever, these relationships are all based on envy. And you just try to find the most comfortable person with which you can relate where the envy is reduced to a minimum. And that's not easy as long as you're in the bodily concept of life. In the verse about the Hammameti, 5th canto, Prabhupada quotes a verse saying, sometimes exalted personalities are not encumbered or conditioned by the family relationship, husband, wife, children, because such personalities, such devotees know that this is not my wife, this is not my daughter or son. These are all Krishna's servants and maidservants. And I maintain the relationship because that's what Krishna wants me to do at this stage of life. I'm meant to serve them. I'm meant to facilitate and encourage them in surrendering to Krishna. And everything we have, we've been saying body and mind, everything, the home, the property, the wealth, all of it, it's all Krishna's. And it's to be used in His service. And even as a devotee, if you enter into that stage of life of married responsibility, parenthood, etc., you have to work hard also. Very hard. And you may have the same foam come to your mouth. But if you're doing it in service to Krishna, it's the last time around on the merry-go-round of birth and death. Because Krishna, the spiritual masters, the Vaishnavas, servants of the Lord, they don't care about what stage of life you're in or what background you come from. All they want to see is a desire to serve Krishna. And if they see even a little bit of it, they'll fan it and they focus on the eternal identity and activity of the living entity. They love us because Krishna loves us. And they give us the strength and the instructions how to reawaken our love for Krishna and all those dear to Krishna. So we hear about Krishna. Today the gopis have begun a vrat. They're worshipping Katyayani. Maharaj wanted to make point, she's a demigod. Yes. In fact, she's often stated to be Durga, Mahamaya. The prison warden, if you will. This material existence is known as a prison. Us conditioned souls are the prisoners. And the fact of the matter is no one escapes. You may be allowed to leave by her grace, by the grace of Krishna's devotees. But nobody on their own means escapes. It's impossible. It is an impenetrable, high security prison that no one ever is broken out of. If we want to get out of it, then we have to understand what the reformatory process is. Reformatory process is. It's devotional service. And hearing is so important. So today, the gopis, they act like sadhakas. I've got to do this worship so that my desire will be fulfilled to serve Krishna. So they're happy to worship Katyayani. Now our acharyas, Sridharananda Maharaj in his purport in 10th canto, that verse, he quotes the previous acharyas and says, actually this isn't really Durga. She's Yogamaya. She's Gokuleshwari, the internal energy of the Lord. Krishna, he never touches material energy. What to speak of having some desire of trying to enjoy it. It's his inferior, separated energy. And the same goes true with the devotees of the Lord. Those who are lovers of Krishna, unalloyed devotees of Krishna, they have no desire to enjoy in this world separate from Krishna. There's nothing to enjoy. There's no substance to it. It's like a 3D hologram. Try to embrace it. You just go right through it. I can see it. I've been told about it. Happiness is promised. But it's inconsequential. The devotee, they don't desire such things that have a beginning and an end. What to speak of the gopis, the greatest of gopis. Krishna, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these gopis, he goes, you're eternally liberated souls, but just to help me relish my pastimes, you're engaging like sadhakas, engaging in this worship of Katyayani. And the gopis, these are the unmarried gopis. They're younger than Srimati Radharani and her associates. The chapter previous to this one describing the pastime, what is it, Gopi Vasanahara, stealer of the clothes of the gopis. The chapter previous to that is the Gopi Gita. And our acharyas explained to us, Venu Gita, thank you. Venu Gita, glorifying Krishna playing his flute. And those are made by Srimati Radharani and the married gopis. And in the chapter that we're talking about at this point, called Krishna Steals the Gopis' Garments, this vow of worshipping Katyayani is being undertaken by the younger unmarried gopis. And it's explained that both the married gopis and the unmarried gopis, their expressions of purva rag is being given to us, being shared with us. Meaning their ecstatic, ever-increasing love for Krishna is being vocalized and being exhibited so that we can understand it and imbibe it, try to follow the example of. They haven't met Krishna yet. They haven't been allowed to serve him in the way their heart dictates. But they're expressing it and doing everything they can, fully absorbed in thought of him, always speaking of him, hearing of him, remembering him. And so with this determination, they began to take up a vow of worshiping Katyayani for a month. They ate unspiced khichdi, mung dal and rice. Not too attractive to the tongue. No. Sense gratifier. As far as I know, no. The whole point is to purify the body so that you can engage in the vrat. And they did that for a month. And they would go to the Yamuna. This is getting cold now. Winter's here. And they would go right at sunrise and they would take bath, chanting Krishna's glories. And then after bathing, they would come out and they would form a deity of Katyayani out of the earth. We know there's different types of medium through which the Lord can manifest himself, or his empowered delegated servants can manifest themselves. Painting, stone, metal, wood, mentally for those advanced. Several ways, jewels. So anyway, they'd fashion, and then they would worship Katyayani, garlands, cloth, incense, fruits, leaves, flowers, and they would always chant. This was the point of their activity. O goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. Thus for an entire month the girls carried out their vow and properly worshipped the goddess Bhadrakali, fully absorbing their minds in Krishna and meditating upon the following thought: may the son of King Nanda become my husband. In a conversation, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur shares with the Katyayani answers, what do you want me to make Krishna your husband? No, I can't make you Krishna your husband. That's the duty of your parents. They're supposed to tell you who to get married to, not me. I mean, I can whisper in their ear and try and influence them, but it's up to them. They're going, no. You can bewilder everyone. Our parents will not recommend Krishna to be our husband. So whoever we may marry, we pray to you that you will allow our heart's desire to be fulfilled, and that is reciprocate lovingly in an unalloyed service mood with Krishna as his wife, as his paramour, as he wishes. That's all they wanted. They had no other desire, completely spotless. No material desire. Krishna told them, when one worships me in such a mood of devotion, one does not sprout, or the result of it is not material desires. It's like leaving barley corn out in the sun and frying, and then put it in a skillet and cooking it. There is no way you could plant that barley corn and have a plant produced. By performance of devotional service, sin and even the desire for sin is eradicated. No other process will eradicate the desire for sin. Only devotional service. He was very pleased with them. And it's a whole wonderful... it took another month, so next full moon will be when they completed it in the pastime of Krishna stealing the garments. And it's a wonderful pastime. Time won't allow me to get into it in detail. But he pushed them. He humiliated them. He ridiculed them. He deprived them of their modesty. These were cultured women who would rather die than be seen naked by a person other than their husband. He made them do whatever he wanted, just like puppets on a string. And yet, despite all that, despite stealing their clothes, etc., were they angry at him? Were they resentful? They were in ecstasy. Because for Krishna to have intimately joked with them and prodded them to come forward to accept their clothes in their nakedness, they knew Krishna, he's attracted to us. He's accepting our desire to reciprocate as a wife, because only the husband can see a woman naked. They were thrilled to death. And even though he was mistreating them in so many ways, their minds were becoming attracted, like, Krishna's joking with them, and they start joking with each other in the water. They're up to their neck because they're hiding their nakedness, and they're freezing, and then they started lightening up, like, they can see Krishna's lovingly reciprocating with it. Here, you go ahead and go first. He's calling you. And if he doesn't trick you, we'll all follow. Come on, you said, please. And so they start. And, the exhilaration and the satisfaction of the desire to have one's service accepted by Krishna. We have no realization of that on the platform that they're experiencing it. Only one who has love can understand these things. These are the most exalted devotees of the Lord, highest examples of fully surrendered souls. And we're meant to hear about these pastimes, how it's completely transcendental. It has nothing to do with the mundanity of lust of this world between boy and girl. Nothing. Krishna is not exploiting them, and the gopis aren't trying to have their back scratched. Each is simply trying to please the other. And in the spiritual world, when everyone has their focus of desires on the cynosure of the supreme enjoyer, Krishna, then there is no duality, there is no envy, there is no hard work, no foam, no frustration, no fear, no death. That is what is being offered. That is what we want. We just have to go through the purificatory process guided by Srila Prabhupada and his followers. Absorb ourselves in these pastimes of Krishna. Nothing of this world even comes close to the satisfaction of talking about, hearing about, remembering, etc. Krishna, 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 hey. Are there any questions or comments? Please, does Ravita have a mic? I didn't do the internet thing. I don't know if anybody... sometimes they ask questions. Go to Facebook.
It's a small point because that we're celebrating the beginning of the Vrat, and I guess at the end there's also a notice at the end of the Vrat. So we may speak about this pastime again, but if we don't, it's interesting that we rely so much on the acharyas to give us insights into these things, and it describes here. Right in the chapter 22, text 8, Krishna, the master of all mystics, mystic yoga, was aware of what the gopis were doing, and thus he went there surrounded by his young companions to award the gopis the perfection of life.
This is a good small drop of nectar you're going to share.
Said, okay, how's that going to work? You know, he's got all his friends with him. And the Vayasya is described in Nectar Devotion as friends of the same age, you know. But Vishwanath Chakravarti saves us. Again, there's other places where Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that the companions of Krishna mentioned here were mere toddlers, 2 or 3 years old. They were completely naked and were unaware of the difference between male and female. When Krishna went out to herd the cows, they followed him because they were so attached to him, they could not bear to be without his association.
These are the witnesses Krishna used to tell the gopis, I'm not lying. Just come before me, say your prayers. I'll give you your clothes, no problem. I mean, they'll tell you, I've never said a lie in my life.
Right, he refers to them there.
Krishna never lied? Boy, that's a whopper.
There's also one other notable
Yeah, shared it, Dravida.
and that is at the beginning of the chapter, you quoted, didn't give the Sanskrit, that's okay. They have this mantra, you know, they're chanting, Katyayani Mahamaya. Each of the young married girls performed a worship while chanting the following mantra. O Goddess Katyayani, great potency, O possessor, mystic power, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. In other words, these they were chanting individually. They were also chanting the glories of Krishna together, but each one was hoping that it'll be my husband. So that's interesting, that mood, you know. 'Cause that's
This is also cool. A month later, when it ends, and they're going to take that last bath, they invite Srimati Radharani and her associates, the married gopis, because for this group of gopis, she is their topmost beloved of the village. They want them to be there to make auspicious this last bath for having completed the vrata.
So the understanding is that her clothes were also stolen at this?
They would have been bathing with them. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So then the following year, come the next fall, when that full Sharat season moon comes up, that's when the fulfillment of their desires. And Krishna said, let me read it verbatim because it is really sweet. Like you said, he knew what they wanted. And he said, I understand your real motive in this austerity has been to worship me. That intent of yours is approved of by me, and indeed it must come to pass. The desire of those, okay, I said that verse. Go now, girls, and return to Vraj, your desires fulfilled, for in my company you will enjoy the coming nights. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a point where he says, the initial dalliances between lover and beloved has to be at nighttime. That's the perfect setting. It's time, place, and circumstance. So you'll get to enjoy with me in the coming nights. After all, this was the purpose of your vow to worship Goddess Katyayani, O pure-hearted ones. Thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the young girls, their desire now fulfilled, could bring themselves only with great difficulty to return to the village of Vraj, meditating all the while upon his lotus feet. Bottom line, last line from me, anybody else can add to it if they wish. But they were willing to do anything, whatever was arranged by Providence that would help them to render pleasing service to Krishna. And when I hear that statement or read the purport that is given saying such about these topmost servants of the Lord, the gopis, they were willing to do anything. I can't help but think of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur when the regent of Great Britain came from Calcutta, the capital, and he came to Mayapur. I mean, this was such a huge event. I mean, it's like the Queen. Basically, it's the same as the Queen coming. You know, the ruler of the land is there, the regent, the representative of, and they had Smarta Brahmins cook goat on the property so that they would have something that they would enjoy at the meal, and they're having visited and consecrated, no, I won't say that word, having come to visit Bhakti Siddhanta, and, you know, his desire was so that people would see, wow, okay, Sri Chaitanya Mat, unbelievable. And the disciples, after it was all said and done, said, "How could you do that? Cook meat here in the ashram and serve it to them?" And he said, "You know, I was like that. I was like you 100 births ago. But then I made the resolve in this life, I'm willing to do anything it takes to help spread the glories and mission of Lord Chaitanya." This is the mood following in the footsteps of the gopis. The opportunities being offered in book distribution to follow that same mood. Get out there and share the mercy. You, in that way, can become most dear to Krishna. Any other comments?
One more.
Please.
Just a note, because the whole dimension of these pastimes that we're not really questioning.
Understandable, and that is the whole artistry of the Sanskrit, So this one thing comes up in my years of chanting these things. There's a book by Rupa Goswami. It's called the Leela Chanda, which is a summary of the Vrndavan Leela, and each pastime has its own meter, and it's just suitable to the pastime,
The mood.
Yeah. So the meter that he chooses for this pastime of stealing the clothes is the same meter as in chapter 31, which is the gopis' songs of separation to Krishna. Which is, there's a bit of a complaining mood there. And sometimes in that you see that exactly. Patisutan ya brat ban ban We've left our husbands, we've left our fathers and friends, and we've come to you, been attracted by your flute. You know very well why we've come out here. Who but a cheater like you would leave women in the middle of the night and like that, So this mood is there, and you can. Now that's the same meter.
Can't believe the sauce.
That's the same meter that he chooses for this pastime of stealing the clothes, because at first the gopis are complaining, please Krishna, we're freezing, So they start out like that,
We're going to tell the king on you.
So, but just one little final little take on that. This chapter, which has only 19 verses, is very well known. A lot of Vaishnavas learn it by heart. I remember I was in the temple here, and there was one fellow, I had never seen him before, and I think he stayed in the class or came late. And then afterward, everyone left, and I heard him before I left. He's chanting this, Jayati Te. But they don't chant it with that and Jayati Te Dikam Janmanavraja. You've heard it like that, right? That hesitation in the middle completely changes the mood. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that the Rupa Goswami picks up on that and gives us the song of the gopis in the meter and the mood that's the Jayati te dikam janmanavraja kshayate indra shaswaratrahi.
Chant this one in the tune.
Which one?
Right here. The days.
No. This one right here?
Well, it's the chapter we're referring to, right?
No, this is Paranjan. This is.
Oh God! Have I really become absorbed? Spaced out, isn't it?
2, 3, put about Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki.